Well, Michelle Gorman, thanks for talking with us about it there from Newsweek. Let's get now to Capitol Hill and the battle over gun legislation. Plans are underway by House Democrats to keep pushing the issue after the historic sit-in just this past week. Joining me now, Congressman John Garamendi of California. He was one of those lawmakers who took part in that sit-in. Congressman Garamendi, it's always good to see you, sir, and let's get right to it. What do you think you and your colleagues accomplished?
Well, we put this issue right at the top of the agenda. This was in the deep freeze. We moved it to the front of the stove, and it is a very hot and a very, very necessary issue. That's what we did. And we're not going to let this go away. We're going to do a National Day of Action on Wednesday, and then when we go back on July the 5th, you can bet this issue is going to be pushed forward by our caucus. It's an important issue. It's one that the American people want Congress to deal with.
It was notable during your turn to speak, sir, that you said, although the House Speaker's chair is empty, you don't believe his heart is. Do you think he would be willing to come to some sort of a middle ground with Democrats, especially when this new poll is showing more Republicans than Democrats in favor of banning those on watch lists from buying guns?
I think so. I think Ryan is a good person. I know he has a good heart, and I know that he's really concerned about the kind of violence that's out there. Unfortunately, his caucus is tied to the NRA. But I think there's a way out of this, and that is that he could promise that on July the 6th, that the Judiciary Committee would take up this the bipartisan Peter King, Mike Thompson bill, do some amendments. The issue of civil liberties should be dealt with, and then put that on the floor within the next week or two. Go with an up and down vote and see where it lies. And that's what ought to happen. I think he could do that. And if he does, we'll dispose of this issue. And I think, frankly, it'll pass. And we'll close the gun show loophole, the internet loophole, have universal background checks. And we will once and for all say, if you're too dangerous to fly, then you're too dangerous to buy.
What about the procedure, though? Don't you think House Speaker Ryan has a point raising concern about the precedent that the sit-in sets? I mean, doesn't this disrupt the procedures of the House, and it raises obstacles to the legislative process?
Well, of course it does. That was the purpose of the sit-in. The purpose of the sit-in was to raise this issue, was to stop business as usual, and to get onto something that we really ought to do, and that is make sure that the American public is safe. And that's why you do these kinds of things. Yes, it was disruptive. Yes, it did break the rules. And that's exactly what we set out to do, was to bring the normal process to a stop and to raise a very, very fundamental and important issue. Just take a look. We've had 11 mass shootings in America since the first of the year. We have 30,000 plus people that have died of gun violence last year, actually more than that. This year we're on an even stronger record of terror and homicide. And we need to deal with this, and to go on and say that people that are too dangerous to fly can go out and buy a gun. More than 2,000 people on the terrorist watch list have been able to buy guns. And what's going on here? We need to get at that.
Congressman, I'm curious, when you are walking through the halls and you see your Democratic colleagues, do they ever privately express to you, other Republican colleagues, do they ever privately express to you things like, you know, good job, we understand where you're coming from? Do they ever talk to you as more like a private citizen rather than someone who's representing interests either of special interest groups or those who they believe have put them into office?
Oh, absolutely. There are relationships that are deep, that are very, very positive between Democrats and Republicans. I'm not going to name names right now, but many of the folks that have been on television on the Republican side during this sit-in are very close colleagues, and our wives or spouses, as the case might be, are also very, very close. We spend time talking about a variety of issues, including this one, and when we travel, as we should do, to the troubled spots of the world to gain information, we spend hours and hours not only with the representatives, but also with spouses, and that's exceedingly important. But then you come down to these hot emotional issues, such as last week with the sit-in, and everybody goes back to their corner, and we come back to the middle of the ring and we box for a while. But we can get past this one. There is a simple solution here, and that is, let's vote on this. Let's make the legislation the best as possible, put it on the floor, see where the votes are. Will it pass? I would hope so. There are those on the Republican side that said, well, even so, it isn't going to pass. Well, let's find out.
Okay. Representative John Garamendi, good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A daughter's advice.